Oh, politics are in full swing right now. So we not gonna miss out on that talk. Welcome to the South Star Classroom on the other side. Oh, as Omar used to say, winno.
Bueno.
Winno. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. That's Omar. I am Charles. Our two other hosts are out this week, but there's a lot happening in the world, and I've held it down solo while our team was on vacation. But I got my brother back, and my brother loves. We have been talking about doing a political show with no holds barred, like just being able to go in. And I'm very happy that it's worked out this way. It might be somewhat of a truncated show just because I'm traveling on the road, and Omar may be somewhere as well. It doesn't like his normal background. But Omar, what take it away, brother? What are we talking about today, man?
Woo, man. So I want to hats off to the real doctor, Dr. Charles Cole. He held it down last week, man. And I loved the solo show immensely. And I wanted to support my brother by coming in the comments section. And he and I, man, we just got on the phone and we started talking about things. And it's like, damn, man, we got like a lot of stuff that we can continue talking about. I kind of made some comments. So I think this is a good time to flush that conversation out. What did I mean in those comments? What are some other things that are like on my mind? And I think a lot of people out there, especially like regardless if you're on the Democratic side or the Republican side, I got to say this and to open up the show, Charles, I think you and I in March, we're like, this is going to be the most boring ass election in the history of elections. It's going to be the most boring ass election, right? Because it's like, we already knew the Democratic candidate was going to be, and there was no contention about what was going to happen with Biden. We already knew the Republican candidate was going to be, and usually in a primary, man, that's exciting. Primaries don't start until February. They usually don't end until, I don't know, like April, May. Then the convention happens, and there's a lot of excitement, and then it hits into the general election. But we had zero excitement on the primary election on both sides. And then we thought, well, this is going to be kind of open and shut, boring ass election between Biden and Trump. And holy crap, this is turning out to be like, this is the exact opposite of a boring ass election, man. Between the debate, between, you know, Joe Biden's like interview that was supposed to save everything. And we're like, God dang, dude, like, oh, man, President Biden just wants to have his ice cream and his iced tea and sit down in the rocking chair. And then, like assassination attempt against Trump. Like there are a docket of things that we want to talk about. So I want to kind of even circle back to discuss the debate. I want to broach topic about Project 2025. I want to kind of close that book on what's going on with the Department of Ed. But I also want to have a discussion about what is the Democratic Party supposed to do right now, and what is going to be the political aftermath of what is an interesting situation and like a horrific one with like an assassination attempt against Trump. So, man, that is the whole subject matter. And guys, our audience, the audience participation last time was through the roof. We want you to chime in. We want to hear your opinions. We want to hear you discuss these things with us. So, don't be afraid to put some comments down because you will help excite more of a conversation. So, just really quickly, now that you and I have a chance, I kind of heard you talk about it, Charles. You, after the debate, were as shell shocked as the rest of us were. Yes.
Shell shocked. I already have my feelings about Biden, and like I like Biden. I do. In many ways. I felt bad for him, man. Then I felt bad for our country. So I don't know if shell shocked is the right word, but I was very where I may have been iffy about if he must leave now. I was more resolved around it, and I think that if you love Joe Biden, I think that that's something. If my grandmother was still alive and she was up on that stage and she looked like that, I'm not letting that happen. Like I'm not my I'm not doing it. I'm not subjecting my grandmother to that. So, I think it's really interesting.
Focused on the students, not the adults. I like that.
Absolutely.
And like, Peter, what does that mean in this political context? You may want to share a little bit about like what that means.
There you go. He beat you to it. Yeah, and focus on the policy, not the person.
And I will say this to Peter, Ben. I think I'm not worried about the Peters of the world. So for me, I'm absolutely about focusing on the policy and not the people. The problem is that great book for all of our audience to read, to think about. If you've not read it already, it's called The Political Brain. And I'll look up kind of who the author is when I get a chance, when Charles is doing a little bit more of the talking. But The Political Brain is this really exemplary book that examined how do people make political decisions. And I will tell you 1,000%, the overwhelming consensus scientifically, we're talking about regression analysis, we're talking about psychology, it's that people don't make political decisions based on logic, they make them based on emotion. So if you go back, and I could ask my brother Charles about this 1,000%. Remember the 2000 election? Remember Bush v. Gore?
I was in high school, yes.
Overall consensus. Yeah.
The Chads, baby. The hanging
intellectual nerd. The hanging Chads in Florida. Yeah, man. But do you remember the conversation about Bush v. Gore in terms of like how people were saying how they felt about Bush and how they felt about Gore? Do you remember the overall moniker? I'm putting you a little bit on the spot, and I can help you out with it.
I mean, I'm going to be very honest with it. I don't think politics was as vitriolic as it is now. So you did hear people. I heard people say that they kind of like Bush, that they thought he was like, he wasn't the smartest guy, but he seemed fun to hang out with. I think that the consensus that I got from about Gore was that he was smart. Like he was a very heady person. He was a deep thinker. He told big tales. I remember that would be a thing. But I remember the people that loved Clinton were very, very high on him. And I remember people that did not like Clinton really wanted the Bush back in office. But I was still too young to vote. I was still in high school, so I was a senior. So I wasn't able to vote in it. So I probably wasn't as involved. But I remember him winning the Nickelodeon or MTV mock election. Gore had won, but it was still close. And I think that was probably one of the last kind of elections of civility in that way. And then I think the hanging Chad incident kind of started this degradation of what our political elections are starting to look like.
Yeah, man. I mean, damn, dude, for high school, that's a damn good memory of like everything that went down. Dude, like that's exactly right. The overall like moniker behind that election was, yeah, Gore's smart, but I wish I could have a beer with Bush. I would rather have a beer with Bush than I would rather with Gore. Gore seems uptight. He doesn't seem cool. But that is exactly what I'm getting at, is that the overall sentiment of America was, I like Bush because he's someone that I feel like I could relate to and have a beer with. That's how they made their decision. That worries me. So for someone as astute, someone as politically intelligent as Peter, and I mean this with like the greatest level of respect on the planet, in this election, I'm not worried about you, because
Oh, you just froze
know
up, or maybe I
policy,
froze.
you know the background. You're trying to focus in on what's important. Oh, did I? My bad.
It might have been me freezing. I got the little
could
signal.
fix this.
It's okay. It might be me. It might be me. But finish your point, and then I want to make sure that I address. I love Peter's comment. I want to address it. So
Yeah.
you go ahead and
Okay.
finish your point.
So, yeah. But what I was saying is that, like, I'm not worried about the Peters of the world because, like, Peter knows how he's going to go, right? What I'm really worried about, is going back to this Bush Gore thing. People are going to make their decision not based on the policy. They're going to base it on how they feel. And how they feel is going to dictate whether or not they're coming out to vote or not. And that's what I'm super worried about in this election, is that voters are extremely motivated to vote. They always are. What's going to happen this time around is that Biden voters are going to fall into two categories, or three, basically. One is, I am that 33% that's going to vote for Biden no matter what. Okay. Then you're going to have a Trump 33% that's going to vote no matter what. That's a percentage, which I'll get to in a second. Then there's going to be a huge percentage of Biden voters that are like, I voted for Biden last time, but this really worries me. I don't think that he is in a good position to move on, but I'm not going to vote for Trump, so I'm just not going to go vote. Now, if you think about that, and this is kind of what I wanted to broach on this show, is that, like, Charles and I studied political science, right? So when we look at politics, we actually kind of have a purview, not just of the policy, but really of, like, the statistics. And right now, I mean, without batting an eyelash, Charles, you know exactly the three states Democrats need to win in order to win this election, right?
Michigan. I was Michigan, Pennsylvania, and it wasn't Nevada this time. It was it Ohio? No, it was what is the third one? It was not Florida. They're gonna get Florida, Wisconsin. Yeah, purple states. Sometimes Nevada, right. But he doesn't. Nevada's not in play at the moment like that.
So yeah, from a science perspective, if you look at the numbers, Republicans are going to take Nevada, they're going to take Florida, and they may even take Arizona, and they may even take Georgia. So yeah. Even with those states gone, the only path to the presidency for Democrats is Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. So here's the problem. Going back to, like, the beer sentiment, going back to, like, hey man, like, how do we feel about Biden? What's going to happen when those three states are saying, I voted for Biden, but I'm not going to go vote. And those Trump voters are motivated to go vote, but Biden voters aren't. That could be the difference of 10,000 that would make or break an election in those three states. And that's what worries me. So, Peter, I'm with you, brother. But what I'm worried about are voters in those three states that simply say, I ain't going to go vote.
Well, and I took what Peter said a little differently. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Good. No, please do.
Yeah, I took it a little differently. One, I would say Trump voters were already highly motivated to vote because their person is not in. And then he survived an assassination attempt, regardless of if you believe it was real or not. I don't think that was staged, but whatever. But they are hyper motivated at this point. Like, they are hyper motivated to go vote for him right now. And I think it's exactly what you said about Biden, that it's not that people might just go vote for Trump, is that a lot of people just won't go vote in those battleground states. Here's the other thing, though. Here's how I took what you said, Peter, and I appreciate you. Thank you for engaging with us. And I like that you put this topic, because you just gave us some fodder for this next 15 minutes. When you say politicians should now focus on policy, not the person, what I'm hearing him say is, we as Democrats shouldn't be, if you are a Democrat, you shouldn't be clamoring about replace Joe, because the alternative is so bad. What is Trump's policy is going to be versus that of Joe Biden's? And I'm not saying that in a vacuum. I'm not saying that you ditch Biden and you go vote for Joe. I mean, that you ditch Biden and vote for Trump. What I'm saying is that there's still some time left. You have to, if you keep telling me that this is the most important election of all time, first off, I think that's bullshit. And here's what I think. as somebody who does study politics, either say one or two things. Either say every upcoming election is the most important election. I can go with that logic. But if every election I've been part of has been the most important, and that's hard for me to hear when we've had a civil war. It's hard for me to hear when we've had World War I and World War II. It's hard for me to hear when we've had Vietnam. It's hard for me to hear when we've had Hoover Dams, right? Like the when we had the Great Depression and things like that, right? Like there's been a lot of important elections. So you can't, as my party, we depend too much on fear mongering. Like, don't tell me what I should be afraid of. Tell me what I should be excited about. And I do think there's some things to be excited about. And I think with Biden, I'm not saying that you just ditch him. If Biden is the candidate, I will vote for Biden. I will, but I know a lot of people that won't. I know a lot of people that just won't go vote. And that's not in the battleground states. I'm talking about states that he's supposed to win, like California. I know people in Illinois. Like, there's a lot of, listen, man, outside of Chicago, there's a lot of farmland. There's a lot of MAGA hats. And you know what I'm starting to see? Inside of Chicago, I'm starting to see a lot of MAGA hats. I think that, so when I hear when I hear what you say, Peter, I'm focused on the policy and not just the person. But if you're telling me that this is how important this election is, why would you run somebody that's not capable of running and holding the office? And if that is the case, why has our party not put Kamala Harris in a position to even be a viable candidate? And people don't want to say this, and I know there are two men here. Like, so we can't just say that if people don't want to vote for Kamala Harris, that they're either sexist or racist. Like, people just don't like her, man. Like, I'm so, like, it's not a I don't know what else to say. Like, I just don't know what else to say. Like, I wish she would have been more vocal. I wish she would have been more out there. Like, I'm not saying I don't like her. I'm talking about people, right? I'm talking about polling. I'm talking about what we see. So if you're gonna go Gavin, or if you're gonna go get somebody that's bright-eyed and ready, go do it. But you know, I'm not trying to focus on the person per se, Peter. But if this election is as important as we say it is, shouldn't we run the best candidate? Shouldn't we run somebody that inspires you? Shouldn't we run somebody that gets you excited to get up and go vote? Because that other side is juiced. That other side is ready to go. And I'm stretching out a little bit for you, Omar, because I know you were trying to look something up. But I just wanted to make. But I appreciate the comment. I definitely appreciate the comment, but I just wanted to be very clear on what I meant by that. But again, like I said, if it comes down to those two, I'm voting for Biden. But I'm one person, and I know a lot of people that are not going there.
Right. So, did you open up a killer can of worms, right? Because you, Peter, and I, and you know, I'm sure our audience members are like, we know exactly what's going to happen regardless of the candidate, either on the Democratic side or on the Republican side. And we're voting for policies on the Democratic side that are, God willing, to expand the middle class, fix inflation, which is already happening, by the way. Like, inflation's already on its way down. It just needs a bit more time. In fact, the Fed was already talking about dropping the interest rate in September. Infrastructure, medical care, jobs. I mean, for God's sakes, fix the housing crisis in America. Can we figure out how to stop corporations from buying single family homes and driving up the price so that people can afford a place to live? Like, these are issues core to the Democratic side, right? And I understand what's going on the Republican side. And dude, you did a great job last week of talking about Project 2025, which I will honestly say that anyone who thinks in their right mind that Trump is not going to do that because he, quote, disavowed, you are the most gullible human being on the face of the planet. When you trust the words of our arguably greatest liar as a president in presidential history, like, look, guys, stats don't lie. He has been consistently voted by hundreds of historians to be the worst president in the United States history. That is worse than Millard Fillmore, worse than Calvin Coolidge, worse than Martin Van Buren, worse than William H. Harrison, the 9th president that died a month after taking office from pneumonia. I mean, dude, he lost to William H. Harrison, dude. Like, you gotta be bad. So to sit here and say Trump is disavowed Project 2025, you are taking the word of arguably the greatest liar in American political history. And like, look, I know that the debate made Biden look bad, but dude, I wish there was a freaking fact checker, because no one's talking about the fact that Trump literally was rattling off lie after lie after lie after lie during that debate, just making shit up like a crazy person. I'm just like, dude, like, he says it so convincingly, people think that it's real, but like, for God's sakes, dude, like, get the hell out of here. Yeah, Nicole, thank you. Exactly. Like, how the Democratic Party hasn't made your issue of stopping corporations and companies from buying single parent households is out of control. There should be absolutely no reason in a capitalist society that allows for competitiveness, allowing for a monopoly of having companies buy single parent households. Like, these are issues, right? But let me share a couple of things here. One, I hear this moniker a lot, and I think it's absolutely right. So I've heard this from like Bill Maher and a bunch of people, and like, it's like, you know, one of these sound bites, like, Democrats fall in love with their candidate, Republicans fall in line. And here's the problem. Like, I'm with Peter, I'm with you, and you're like, we should be voting for the policy. But people don't vote for the policy, they vote for the person on the Democratic side. I want people to vote for the policy. I want people to understand the deep nuance of what the Democratic Party is trying to do. But there's a reason that George Washington was our first president. He was 6'2" and a commanding general.
And he didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And he didn't want it. Yeah.
There's a reason that people say he looks presidential, she looks presidential. Is that people fall in love with an image. And it sucks, because I don't want the presidency to be predicated on a personality of a person. The people in this country will always choose. And I'll give you a couple examples. I'm like, Doc, you know this. Nixon versus Kennedy. What the hell happened? How the hell did some 40-year-old punk-ass kid who went to the most prestigious schools in the country beat the vice president of the United States, Eisenhower's vice president, who had been there for 8 years? How in the hell did he win that? Now, granted, like, there's a huge political.
Well, it's one of the biggest. I was gonna say it's one of the biggest case studies of all time, right? Like, it's the. I don't know if you were asking, teeing me up to answer it, or you wanted to go for it, but
well,
it reminds me
that
remind me to answer Nicole's question about Kamala Harris. I'll go deeper.
Yes,
into
please.
that.
I want to get into that.
But yes, right if you want to explain how he beat the pants off of Nixon, it's one of the in the political science world, it's like learning your ABCs, right? It was the first time television was used. It was a new medium. He was not prepared for television. He was not a handsome man. He looked sweaty. He looked gruff. Yeah, Nixon. Nixon was gruff. He did not play well to the camera, whereas that other guy, much like Barack Obama with social media, how he embraced and understood that more than his opponent did. They understood, like, put this good-looking man up here, make him stand up straight, make his teeth have a sparkle, make women want to fall in love with him and men want to be him. And even with that Bostonian accent, he went up 20, 30 points. Like, he went up an obscene amount, because the way that this electorate votes is based off who they like.
Yeah, man. And look, first off, you nailed it, because that's the conventional wisdom. And you and I can dip into the tangent of the Kennedy election in a minute, because it's actually freaking fascinating. And we'll talk about Kamala, but we'll jump into how Frank Sinatra helped win the election for Kennedy, because like, that is one of the most fascinating political case studies in United States history. But even, you know, Bill said it. It's like Nixon sweat without even having to prompt Bill. Bill's like, Nixon sweat. And that's what happened, is that he was horrible on television, and this country fell in love with this bright, young, articulate, good-looking kid from Massachusetts. He was one of the most quotable presidents in history. And people made an emotional decision, and that is what is making me really worried about this election, is how
was
many
very
people
emotional.
are voting on emotion and not logic. And I got to tell you, that's why I'm recommending the political brain to everybody. People make their political decisions not on logic, not on what is best for the country, not as what is best for everybody else. How does this person make me feel? And that's a good segue to really quickly touch on Kamala. Then we'll get back to Kennedy. Let's talk about
Kamala. You have to say her name correctly. Kamala. You have to say her name correctly. I got you.
Karma Chameleon. Gotcha. So how do people feel?
You start now, and I'll come back on the backside if you like.
So, right, I'm gonna.
Or I can start. It's up to you. Because I have something to put up on the screen for Nikki, for Nicole, because she asked why do I think people don't like Kamala Harris?
I'll tell you,
and it's
I'll give you.
Well, every single poll.
Then I'll go inside.
Yeah.
I'll go inside baseball on that one. Go for it.
Got you. Well, here's part of it, right? Every single poll, this right here. Let's just start here. Kamala Harris has polled very, very poorly since she started out with a plus 10 approval, and over time her disapproval has just grown into this point right now where her disapproval is over 50%. And I think that that's even being modest in some ways. I think a lot of people feel that she's not relatable. They feel that she's disingenuous. They feel that she is whatever race she needs to be, depending on who she is talking to. And I think a lot of people feel like they haven't seen her as much as they probably would have liked to have seen her and seen her be genuine throughout this presidency. What I thought was happening was what Joe Biden said was he was going to be a bridge president. I thought that he was setting up to bridge the country from coming out of Trump and then preparing Kamala or whoever else, whatever young shining star was going to rise out of the Democratic Party. And then somewhere along the line, he changed his mind and said, I will run again. And the internal struggle has so far gone Joe and Jill Biden's way to keep him as the top of the ticket. That is the answer that I have that's rooted in the evidence and a little bit of my opinion. But here's some active polling. I would say, Nicole, you can go do as much polling as you like from other sources. I think you'd find pretty similar results.
Whoo, man, I got some insider ball for this crew. So
just give it. Nicole, you got some insider baseball. Go ahead.
You got some insider baseball right here. But Doc's right. First off, the polls are undeniable. The one thing I would say is polls should be looked with a bit of a grain of salt after Hillary. Everyone thought Hillary was going to win this thing, and then, damn, dude, what happened? So what is going on with Kamala? So I was making a couple comments last week, and this is the insider ball about what's going on, is that we knew Kamala, man, am I saying it right? Vice President Harris, thanks.
Kamala, there you go.
Kamala. Yeah. So when I say we, I mean, without sharing too much information, let's just say that family members of mine are extraordinarily familiar with her. Why? They were at UC Hastings, which is the law school in San Francisco that she went to, that she was very much involved in. They were involved deeply in San Francisco politics when she was consorting with downtown Willie Brown, the mayor of San Francisco at the time. So we've known her.
And a friend of mine. I know Willie Brown. He's actually a friend and was a mentor at one point.
Yeah, man. And look, dude, Willie's man, what a fascinating case study. The thing with Willie and the thing with now Vice President Harris is that I think he was trying to give her some very necessary information that I don't think that she listened to. Now, she then became Attorney General, but this goes way back. So when I tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, the information I'm sharing has nothing to do with the media, has nothing to do with polling. This is insider information, not to mention the fact that I'll be very, very careful about how I say this. Let's just say I get fed a lot of very first-hand level information, and I'm not going to disclose how, why, or any sources. They're I ain't just making this shit up, and I'm not getting it from the media. There is a huge problem with Vice President Harris. And the problem is twofold. First, she thinks that she's the smartest person in the room. That is the first problem, because she is not even remotely the smartest person in the room. Sorry, dude. Look at the hat. Look at the kind of people that I know. I always tell people that I survived Stanford, not thrived at Stanford, because I was competing against some of the smartest people on the planet. I was lucky to survive that place, but it doesn't mean that I didn't pay attention to the ludicrously intelligent people that were at Stanford, that were at Harvard. Those people are usually smartest person in the room. Vice President Harris ain't that person, bro. Not even close. Now, the thing with not being the smartest person in the room, and I'll make some comparisons, is that Biden, for example, I would say is not the smartest person in the room. Barack's the smartest person in the room. Hillary is the smartest person in the room. But here's where Barack got it right. Barack, despite being, I think, the smartest person in the room, listens. And that's the second part of this equation. So the best recipe that you could possibly give for a president is, if you ain't the smartest person in the room, like I would say Biden compared to Obama, Biden knows how to listen, knows how
you just got all the things going on.
Execution, yeah, man. But with Biden, it's not just that he listens to everybody else. He knows how to execute a plan, probably better than anybody since LBJ. He knows Congress. He knows how to pass legislation. That man is a legislative genius that should be given some credit for.
I would say he's a political genius. I would absolutely say that. And it's on both domestic and foreign policy. I think not very many people are touching him on foreign policy either.
Yeah, and foreign policy, man, like the dude has always had his shit together since the 1980s. The thing is that, like, look at Obama. He listened to Joe pragmatically on, okay, I've got all these great ideas, but what is the pragmatic approach on how to actually solve this? With Harris, she thinks she's the smartest person in the room and then doesn't listen. And when you have that recipe, that is a recipe for disaster. And what's going on is that if you look internally into her staff, the vice presidential staff, which is a huge staff, by the way, a massive amount of people run the office of the vice presidency. It's got the greatest turnaround of any vice president or president, worse than Trump. She has a worse attrition rate of holding on to people than Trump himself, meaning the very people that went to go work for President Harris left, not just in months, in weeks. Why? She wouldn't listen. She thought she was the smartest person in the room. So you've got people smarter than her, counseling her, but she won't. It's worse than she won't listen. She thinks that she's smarter than you are. And when you have that recipe, when you're not listening and when you think you're the smartest, that is a recipe for disaster, not just for any leader, but especially for the president of the United States. So, Doc, you are right. The insider ball was that Biden was going to get into the presidency in 2020. Bill was right. It was supposed to be that he handed it off to Kamala, to Vice President Harris. After 2 years, after the midterms, it was supposed to be a handoff. He and the DNC,
midterms didn't go the way they wanted.
Exactly. Looked at Vice President Harris and were like, first off, everything you say is garbage. It is, like Bill was right, it is word salad garbage. There is no substance in what she says. She is not a smart person. Sorry, Vice President Harris.
Look,
you ain't the smartest vice president we've had. But like, you're in a solid line of Dan Quayle's and Mike Pence's. Welcome to the club. But you ain't Al Gore.
I mean, man, I don't know if she is or not. I mean, but she didn't demonstrate it. She wasn't allowed to for whatever reason. And when she did get up there, it wasn't of substance. I know I have to leave in about a few minutes. Just hit end stream when you're done, because I want you to keep going as long as you want. But let me say this, and Nicole, I hope you're still here.
Yes.
Because Nicole asks, is there a poll that shows in general how well Black women in power are liked? I'm very glad that you asked that, because wait a second. I got you. Not only is it not about her being a Black woman, which half the time she doesn't claim her blackness. She does sometimes, but depending on who she's talking to, right? But not only is that like fault, like Black women do not generally poll as not liked in power. Michelle Obama is the only Democrat that beat Trump in the latest polls that came out. She's the only one, a Black woman, somebody where there's no ambiguity. You know who she is. Somebody that was not in political power, right? Like she is the only Democrat. Like Democrats would love for her to run, but she doesn't want to run. So I just wanted to answer that question very directly because one, I didn't want this to turn into just strictly identity, right? Like, because I think that's where our party is struggling a lot, right? It's like we are okay with saying, well, I didn't win just because of blah, blah, blah. If the goal is to win, one, let's go win. But two, the polling data shows the exact opposite. The most popular Democrat right now in the world is a Black woman who doesn't want to do it. So I just wanted to make sure I put that out there. This is from The Hill. This was done by Reuters and Ipsos. I don't know if I said that right. It's Ipsos, right? And just so we know, the survey conducted by Reuters Ipsos found Obama was the only Democrat with a lead on Trump in a hypothetical matchup where she garnered 50% support to his 39. She beat him by 11 points. Only 4% of respondents say that they would not vote at all. So again, I just want to make sure that we have covered that piece. And Nicole, I hope you feel like we answered. What do you mean? I don't know what you mean. Not in general. First Lady Obama is not in general. Well, so listen. If we gonna skew this and like play like word games around like who's liked and who's not or whatnot, I don't know what else to say about that. I'm just showing you hard data. You can't say that First Lady Obama is not in general, but then Vice President Harris is in general. Like it is, what are we doing logically? We're talking about two specific Black women, right? Like we're not talking about in general. So, I mean, that's like saying the field. Like, I don't know. I don't know where to go from there, but all I can go off of is the data that I see, the actual political science research that was done. And a Black woman is the most favorable, the Democrat in the world right now. So do with that what you will.
Yeah, and I think that like so much of politics is identity, but the thing is that like this is a really good demonstration of like there is a conversation around what is it about Kamala versus Michelle Obama versus anybody else, which is simply put that like
I can tell you. Can I tell you and then get off?
Please.
I'll tell you why I like her more. Let me tell you why.
Like
Michelle Obama commands every single stage she is on. She is generous. She is confident, but she is also humble. She knows how to talk to people. She has empathy. She seems very pragmatic and she seems very smart, but she also seems like she listens to people around her. She seems like her values are intact. Like when there's an issue that came up with her husband or her children, she was very, very clear about where she stood on things. When Kamala Harris speaks, it feels like she's trying to do and make the same mistakes that Hillary Clinton made. What is the wave I need to ride today? Do I need to be Southeast Asian today or do I need to be Black today? Do I need to give them a parade today or should I talk about policy today? Should I talk about my record as Attorney General or should I act like I've been the most progressive Attorney General in the world even though I have not been? Like the engine, like who is more genuine to you? I think answers that question. But again, I don't hate Kamala Harris. I want to make sure that that's very clear. But she is nowhere near as strong a candidate as a Michelle Obama who does not even want a political career going forward. And that should be some type of signal. As Democrats, are we going to keep beating a dead horse and trying to make people or shame people into liking who we think they should like? Or are we going to listen to the tea leaves and actually get the best candidate to run and represent? That like we can't keep doing this thing where if somebody doesn't like VP Harris, that they're automatically sexist or they're automatically racist. And I think, and I'm saying this as a Black man that loves Michelle Obama and that loves Black women. I just do not think that VP Harris is a strong candidate. And with that, I gotta go, brother. You got it. I'm gonna let you rock.
All right, man. I need a second.
Okay. Do you know how to end the stream, or do I need to end it right now and we just come back?
Here's the problem. I was not signed in, so I don't know how to stop the recording because I don't have that button now.
Well, you go ahead. I'm gonna get dressed. I'm gonna go off camera and get dressed because I gotta leave in 10 minutes, and you just wrap it up in these next 5 or 10 minutes.
And then you can. I got you. I got everybody on this one. So, man, really well said. Really well said, Doc. Let me back up what Doc is saying, not just by his opinion about, Vice President Harris's wavering. If you look at her staff, I think it should be a humongous demonstration of her as a leader. If you have her staff constantly leaving, constantly saying, this is a person that does not listen. This is a person who acts with extreme arrogance. This is a person who doesn't know what she's talking about. This is a person that isn't actually doing the research and diving into the process of learning how to become president. She's just trying to figure out the best thing to say. It is what is causing such an enormous rift in her ability to maintain a staff. And if she can't maintain a staff as a vice president, how the hell is she going to maintain a staff as president? She does not invoke confidence. That is a problem. There's a huge problem because ultimately, then this is why people are not voting for her. This is why her polling is terrible. This is why no one wants to go work for her. Because ultimately, if you're going to have some pitter-pattering individual who can't decide on which side they're going to be on an issue because they're just trying to figure out what is going to make me more popular versus having conviction about their own ideologies, listening to others on how to best figure out the path forward, and then acknowledging I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I'm ultimately here to learn from the smartest people in the room. That makes an amazing president. Guys, there has been 1,000 books about that. No more famous than Team of Rivals by Lincoln. Lincoln was the smartest guy in the room, and yet he brought the smartest people in the room who would disagree with him and thus create ludicrous policy that would have ramifications hundreds of years later. This is the problem. And getting back to, I think, what Peter was saying, I'm with you, Peter. I'm all for the policy. And I'm definitely all for the policy of the Democratic Party. The people don't vote on policy, they vote on feeling. And when they vote on feeling, the general feeling about Vice President Harris right now is that this is not good. Someone in the comments said that Kamala was, I think Bill said, Peter said a launching pad for Biden. Dude, I don't disagree with the fact that she really circled that ticket around. It looked awesome. Here is this, at the time in 2000, what looked like a very smart, vibrant, incredibly intelligent, multiracial person. That's awesome. That made the ticket look incredible. The goal was Biden was going to essentially put her into a position of power in 2022. But the problem with how loathed she is by her staff, how unpopular she is, made them redirect their decisions. So the inside of baseball is, I don't know if y'all remember this, but Pete Buttigieg got a very large scale bump in attention. And he was Secretary of Transportation. Other than Secretary Monero, for all of us from California who I believe the San Jose airport is named after him, can anyone else name a Secretary of Transportation? Can anyone on the podcast, without looking it up, tell me who the Secretary of Commerce is right now? If you're a badass, you probably could. But odds are, how do you know who the Secretary of Transportation is, but are having trouble remembering, I don't know, who the Secretary of State is right now? It's because Pete was going to be the presumptive replacement for Vice President Harris. Then we got into a huge debacle with the whole transportation component, the freeze, the FCC, the entire debacle that I think you all remember a few years ago when it came to the planes and transportation, everything else, really hurt his reputation immensely. And we're like, maybe this dude needs a little bit more time in order to kind of get his bearings. So it was like, crap, what do we do now? We can't have Pete. Vice President Harris is a mess. This is why we had Joe kind of being like, I guess I'm going to run again in 2024, when that was never the option. Now, what I wanted to kind of do is say, hey, man, well, what are the options? What could happen? Because a lot of people are like, we're stuck with Joe. And I'm like, that's not the case. Joe could step down. Absolutely. We're still in time, because the conventions for those of us that are historical nerds, and Doc knows this, conventions were actually the method in which we decided presidential and vice presidential candidates. Now, I'm all for the primary election because it's way more democratic than the convention system, but the convention still allows for a change, especially if Biden decides to step down. However, he would have to step down. You can't just replace him. You've got to be able to say, hey, I'm going to step down. Now, for those of us who are like, well, who the hell do we got? I got a huge list, man. You got Andy Beshear. Yeah, who the hell is that guy? Governor of Kentucky.
You got 2 minutes, and my Uber will be here. So you got 2 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So you got 2 minutes, man. Like, I want to just strictly say, like, we got a lot of people that could step into this position. You spend a lot of time in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Beshear is. I mean, I don't know what value if you're looking like Beshear wouldn't win Kentucky, so I think that's something that they would be looking at. But I don't know if he helps with the path. He may. I think Gavin Newsom is not as strong in California, but I think he's stronger nationally. I think people that are not in California like him a little bit more than people in California do. I mean, he has the look, right? Like, so I don't know. But if Biden says that there are 50 Democrats right now that could beat Trump, then, hey, man, we'll line them up.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm looking at Gavin Newsom. I'm looking at Josh Shapiro. I'm looking at Wes Moore. Wes Moore, first Black governor of Maryland, right? Like, this guy's badass, dude. Gretchen Whitmer, who's the governor.
Meg Whitmore, Gretchen. I was gonna say Gretchen Whitmore. Like, if you Michigan, you need Michigan. So
you need Michigan, man. And she probably has a very comprehensive understanding of what those wall states, as they're supposedly called, need. You could win Michigan. You could figure out Wisconsin. Biden, remember, is from Pennsylvania, so there's got to be some level there. I mean, right now, you've got people that have the opportunity to come in and make this replacement, but like, it has to be that Biden himself decides, like, I'm going to step down. Now, in my opinion, does that make Vice President Harris the presumptive? Well, according to the 25th of the Constitution, yeah. But if I were the Democratic Party, I'd have a conversation and be like, look, check this out. We got an election to win. Biden, I think you need to step down. Harris, why don't we make a compromise and put you into Secretary of State so that you can, like, spend a little bit more time? Or why don't we make you the Attorney General of the United States? You're already Attorney General of California, like, as a compromise, and let's get a whole new ticket going on.
Jesus, Nicole. But you know what? I mean, there's a lot of people around the country that will say the same. That will say the same thing. He is a Kennedy reincarnated. So. And listen, anybody that can have a baby by their staffer's wife, like anybody that can get caught like that and still be bulletproof. Oh, yeah. That man got forgiven in a week, bro. So I mean, we just talked about this, right? And it was annoying, but we just put that name up there, and you saw the main person that had something to say was like, yeah, well, he do got the look. That's how that shit works, man. Sorry. It sucks. It shouldn't be the case. But you gotta close this out, man.
Okay, man. I will actually close this out because Doc has a Uber to catch.
I have to host the dinner. I have to host the dinner, like, so host my staff. Dinner.
Yeah. So I will say this: if you all liked this show and you really enjoyed hearing about politics, Doc and I
let us
always do a show on politics. Let us know if you like the show. Subscribe to the show. Message us, being like, "Hey, man, I'd love to hear a lot more." Because I will say this, and I will close on this. I would say that the national media today is garbage when it comes to their discussion about what is actually going on in politics behind the scenes. There's very few that I think is getting into the non bullshit of what is being, what I think is the interpretation of what is happening. And news is always going to feed you shit that's going to make you come back. I think we're going to feed you shit that is going to nourish your soul and give you truth behind what's going on. And I will say truth is powerful. This is why I think Vice President Harris is widely unpopular, because I think she's ludicrously disingenuous. I don't think that she shares the truth. And that is a problem when you are becoming president. You better absolutely be completely behind your convictions and share the truth. So if you like this show, please subscribe. If you like the show, let us know, because Doc and I can host a show like this, maybe weekly, bi-weekly, once monthly, depending on how you guys like it, aside from the South Star Classroom. So if you like the show, let us know. But on behalf of Dr. Charles Cole, our friend Jubilee Ransom, the Beard of Knowledge, David Castillo, and me, Omar Yanar, this has been the South Star Classroom. Thank you all so much for your incredible participation. We'll see you all next week when everyone's back. Peace.
Peace.